Is anybody out there? I couldn't go live on my laptop. Jeff put new memory in my laptop to try and make it more gooder. And now when I went to go live, it says the new way that Facebook has you going live doesn't accept the browser that I have, that my browser needs to be updated. I couldn't figure it out. So here I am on my iPad. And I figured I would come on and see if anybody has any questions they want to fire away on the Marni case after the 2020 episode aired Friday night. We are going live on WMP Justice Review at 6 p.m. Central tonight, which is 3 hours and 20 minutes from now. Hey, Steve, more gooder. Yeah. I'm supposed to be doing right now, I have to make a list of things for Tammy. Tammy is the founder of WMP Justice Review. And since obviously we can't count on mainstream media to tell the real facts of the case, we are going to film it ourselves. And so I am supposed to be putting together a list, hey Miley, of all the things that we need to cover in Marni's case in showing her innocence. So I need to make a list of each thing. I need to storyboard it out on what we need to film. We're going to do our own reenactments. We're going to do it all. Marni's team, the WMP Justice Review team, we are going to meet virtually on Wednesday and discuss how to move forward. And I also posted in here today that her lawyer did do a small response that's in a local newspaper here. And Jed, sorry, I'm getting distracted by, since I'm sitting here, I've got my tree out front and all my birds that are all over my tree because, you know, it's not squirrel, it's bird. Jed always stands by, it is his job to prove the facts in the case, and he doesn't expect anybody else to do it. So Jed isn't nearly as upset about that 2020 episode as the rest of the team is. Melissa says, how does this show affect her chances with future court and innocence? May seem like a dumb question, but I am curious as to how it would affect her if she gets a new trial or... Well, in the grand scheme of things, Melissa, it shouldn't at all, because the court is supposed to go by the evidence and laws. But we all know when things are corrupt, that doesn't matter. So, obviously, we do not have the court of public opinion. This 2020 episode has really kind of thrown me greatly, which, you know, in my advocating for Stephen Avery all these years, you know, I've gone through the gamut. But, and when I watch an episode on Marni's case from Oxygen, you know, on Snapped, okay, I see that that's not accurate. But then when I know that they went into the prison and talked with Marni, I know they sat with all the different experts on the WMP Justice Review team, and spent many hours with them where they were going over all the evidence. And then you see there's only a small little snippet from each expert, and some experts weren't included at all. And that most of the show, I would say, 85% of the show was all stuff from a prior episode they did on Marni's case years ago. so there's so much new evidence that has come out, and they didn't show any of it. And let me see what Landon's post is. Hey, I was excited to watch the 2020 with Marni because I followed this page. I was totally going in thinking she didn't do it, but when I watched 2020, I was a little hesitant now, and I totally get it, because if all I knew was that 2020 episode, I'd be right there with y'all. Even my mother, I'm I don't know if I should be embarrassed, but people from my personal life now watch this because they know this is what I've been doing for the last year and a half, or however long it's been that I've been on Marni's case. And they're like, Jack, she's guilty. So I totally, so I'm not going to rip on anybody if you say that, oh, this didn't look good. If you come in here, and since this is MAM gossip and this is where I rule, my same rules apply like with Stephen and Brendan. I believe in Marni's innocence, and if you're going to just flat out be a guilter asshole, and Landon, I'm not saying that's you, I'm just saying from guilter assholes in Stephen world, I'm not going to engage, and I'm just going to delete your post, and if you persist, I will ban you from the group. I am not, so I welcome you to question the evidence, and as long as you're going to have an open mind and hear from our experts. Yeah, I know you're not Landon. So, yeah, no worries. I know sometime, this whole virtual thing, things can be taken completely out of context or people don't understand. So I know, Landon, I welcome your questions, because that's what helps us in fighting for Marni, is seeing where we don't have the bases covered. So that's what we're going to start doing on WMP TV network. We're going to start producing our own 15-minute videos where we're going to tear apart each part of the evidence. And you're going to see from all of our experts, so you'll see from our expert that's going to show you the trajectory that the shots went, and how it is impossible for it to be Marni Yang. You'll hear from our investigators who have talked to anybody that's involved in this crime, where maybe they're not people that will come forward, and so you can't see them or hear them, but they've talked to them, so they know what's going on there. There's so many experts. So, Melissa says, have you talked with Marni since the show, and how is she doing? I don't talk to Marni. I email with her on occasion, but she does talk to Tammy every day. And Tammy informed me last night, not sure if this is supposed to be public, but I've already made it public, every time that one of the episodes on Marni airs, so the old episodes, and inmates there see it, then Marni gets bullied and picked on. And 2020 now was no different. So there was a group of inmates who now were gathering in a little mob, and were going to beat the crap out of Marni. But then another inmate caught wind of it and put a stop to it before, so Marni is in jeopardy. Us on the team, I know myself and Tammy are getting sent threats. The MarniYang.com website is getting attacked. There's a tip line on there, and tips are coming in that are very vulgar and threatening, and it's horrible. My YouTube channel, the Justice with Jack's YouTube channel, I've had to go through and delete posts that have been now commented on, old videos on there, saying things like Marni just wanted the good black D. These are the kind of people we're dealing with. That's why, for me, I have learned with Stephen Avery case, there's just no point in arguing with guilters. Guilters are not going to believe facts. But so I have more faith in you all in the MAM gossip community that what you saw on 2020 makes Marni look guilty, but you want to dig into the facts and see the whole story. And so I want you to question everything. Let me scroll back. Landon says her kids are on her side, right? Yes, her kids are on her side. And I know the 2020 episode made it out like the kids weren't, and then is making it look like they're lying now because they're just trying to free their mother. No. Again, most of you people who are here because of the Stephen Avery case. You know what was done to Brendan Dassey. That was done to Marni's children, who were 16 at the time. The twins were 16, the same age as Brendan. And this was done to them. And so eventually they said what was told to them to say. That's what happened. Just like Brendan has recanted what he said, so has Emily and Andrew. I don't think Brandon is really an issue here. He was only 12 at the time. But her kids are firmly in her corner. And I have thought about reaching out to her daughter to make sure that they're all okay. But I don't know if that's a good thing for me to do or not, if that makes it worse or not. You know, that if they just want to try and ignore the whole thing. Ian says, hi, Jax. Hopefully there are people crawling her files like we did Stevens and find something that's not right to help even more. Well, and that's something that Tammy is working on, because the files in Marni's case are huge. And so we are going to get those uploaded, and they will be on marniyang.com. I also mentioned to Tammy how we have done with Stephen Avery Project and Here in Gossip, where I have read the filings. And she's like, I'm not doing that. But because it's so long. So maybe I would do that in here for you gossip people, if that's what you wanted me to do, is read through these thousands of pages for you, for those who can listen to me while you're driving or painting or, you know, whatever you're doing in this social distancing world. So let me know if that's something you would like me to do, is to read the briefings to you. And Ian, I absolutely want fresh eyes on it, because people like what Carol Ann Fitzgerald did for Stephen's case, that's huge. So when I talk about how the WMP Justice Review has just this great team of experts, you can never assume they've seen it all. And nobody should have that big of an ego that you can't just have somebody say, hey, did you think of this? I know it could be annoying, and I've bitched about that here in Gossip before, when we get new people to Making a Murderer, and they'll say something like, did anybody think to see if that key was for the engine or what? And those of us who have been following the case forever are like, that's so old news, and get annoyed. Don't get annoyed. They're new people. They're fresh eyes. So just go, yep, we know that's not the engine key, that's the valet key. We know it's a spare key, you know. So same thing goes with Marni's case, you know. So if you start going through the stuff that is going to be posted, you know, and you want to say, hey, what about such and such? Just do it. Don't worry if somebody's gonna, because if somebody gets upset that you're just giving a suggestion, I'm sorry, earmuffs, they can fuck off. Let me scroll. Gail says, on 2020, they said they found the address labels to these other women. Is this true? We talked about this. Now, we do lives all the time on the WMP Justice Review Facebook page. We do them on Mondays and Fridays at 6 p.m. Central Time. And we did a live on Friday at 10 p.m. right when 2020 ended. And so the address labels was a big question that people had that I didn't even know the answer to. Well, I make it out like I didn't even know the answer to, like I know everything, and I don't. I have a very bad memory. I really think maybe I'm early onset Alzheimer's because I just forget so much stuff. But so Tammy said, "What? No, those weren't found at Marni's. It's a complete setup. So no, those address labels were not found at Marni's. They made them and said they found them there." Sounds conspiracy theorist, sounds crazy, but again, Stephen Avery Project people, MAM gossip people, you know what they've done to Stephen. You know the magic key. You know the magic bullet. You know those things can be planted. And if you're bored in, again, this time of stay at home, look into other cases that have happened in Lake County, Illinois. That's something that Steve Lapino, I don't know if Steve is still on here currently. Steve Lapino is one of the investigators for WMP Justice Review. And he always refers back to a big case in Lake County was the Juan Rivera case, where I don't know how many years that poor man was in prison for a murder he didn't commit. And the same Lake County Major Crimes Task Force planted blood on shoes that they said were his. And then it was proven later that this was a plant. So this particular law enforcement organization has a storied history of framing people for murders. Melissa Kaluzinski, another of Kathleen Zellner's clients, is Lake County Major Crimes Task Force. So you have to look at the whole picture and not just what a show puts out there. And something that Tammy talks about, and she's absolutely right on this, when you see those episodes, 2020, the ID channel, all that stuff, what do you see most often on those shows? It's law enforcement that's talking about the case. Law enforcement, the lawyers, whatever. So they're all going to continue to do this person's guilty and here's why story. You have nobody that's defending the person they're accusing. Thomas says, "Who is this? What you got to do with Stephen and Brendan?" Well, who is this? My name is Jax West, and I run Stephen Avery Project, MAM Gossip, among others. I'm an advocate for the wrongfully accused. And while Stephen Avery is the first case I took on, Marni Yang is another case that I advocate for. And since nothing is currently happening in Stephen's case, and in Marni's case, we just had a 2020 episode this past Friday, I am talking about the Marni Yang case. So I understand there's people that you don't care about other cases and you only want to hear about Stephen and Brendan. If there was anything to talk about on Stephen and Brendan, I'd be talking about them. But right now I'm talking about Marni Yang. Landon says, "And what about the rental car?" I'm live in gossip right now. Oh, all right. Okay, bye. Ha! That was Tammy. I'll call her when I'm done with the live. What about the rental car? I think I remember Marni said something about a photo shoot. Correct. This is very layered, okay? So Marni was a fitness model, right? An aspiring fitness model. And so this was an ad to be a model for the shoot, and it was a scam. Marni was scammed. And so in this, she had to, they were going to take a photo of her with a car. And so she rented a car for it. The car was delivered to Christy Passion's house because Marni lives in Chicago and Christy lived out in the suburb near the forest preserve where the photo shoot was going to take place. So that's where the car went. And then the photographer didn't like the car because the car was blue and he wanted a black car. And so then Marni rented a black car. The team knows the photographer, has talked with the photographer. Photographer cannot be used in this case because he scammed Marni and he scammed other women. He sexually assaulted women. So he is not going to come forward or say anything because it puts himself in jeopardy due to what he did. And then you have the state claims from a gas station that was nearby the crime scene that they said you can see around that time that the murder happened, that a car drove past there going the direction they'd say she would have been going for this. That was the rental car. But then you did see at the end of 2020, which I've been told now from the uploaded thing they've cut that out. So anything that is positive to Marni, they're not putting online. But our experts have shown you that it's not the same car. Nowhere near the same car. It is not the car she rented. So that's just a total overreach that they're doing to try and say it was Marni. Let me scroll. Melissa says, I am not super familiar with this case, but is the general idea that Sean is somehow responsible. Frankly, that's what I got out of the 2020 episode. Here's what I believe. Sean paid to have this done. He did not want children, and I've seen people attacking that too when they're like, well, why would he be with Marni then if Marni had kids? None of these girls were his girlfriend. All right, Marni doesn't even like to be referred to as his girlfriend. These were all people that just had sex with him. That's all they were. Because, like, if they went out with Sean, you paid your own way. He wasn't lavishing you with anything. You weren't a kept woman, so, like, he wasn't paying for Ronnie's expenses. Now she's pregnant with his child. She was working 2 jobs to make ends meet. Ronnie Ryder was. Marni was working 2-3 jobs to take care, because she was a single parent, taking care of her 3 children. So these were all women, for whatever their reason was having sex with Sean Gale. Nobody was his girlfriend. Nobody was his number one. And so Ronnie had 2 prior abortions, and there is proof of the abortions. And then when she got pregnant this time, she didn't tell Sean. She hid it until it's after that point of X amount of weeks when now you cannot legally have an abortion. So he's not happy with that. He does not want a baby. And so for people to say, too, that Marni is jealous of Ronnie because she's going to have his child, it's the exact opposite. Ronnie getting pregnant makes it so Sean wants nothing to do with her. Because he doesn't want that kid, and he doesn't want to get tied down to that kid. And so if you look at crime scene photos, you'll see in both Ronnie's house and Sean's house, that's not how people who are about to have a baby have their house set up. A woman who's 42 years old and thinking this is her last opportunity to have a child, you're going to nest. You're going to be excited. You're going to have a crib and a mobile and all that stuff. There's next to nothing in preparation of this child. Why? Because Sean said you don't know if it's going to happen. Sean was with Ronnie for 16 years, 18 years. They don't live together. She's 7 months pregnant with this child. They're not together. He's not paying for her. He's not paying for her to go to the doctor. He's not going to look at ultrasounds. He's doing none of that. So it is my belief that Sean paid to have this done, that this was a hit, and somebody went to get rid of Ronnie Ryder on behalf of Sean Gale. That is my belief. That is not something that I've been told from the WMP Justice Review. This is me speaking. So don't hold anybody else accountable to what I'm saying right now. Me. I say Sean Gale hired this out. Hi, Snooze. How is Marni doing now? Is she okay? Well, Tammy just called me, and I'll be calling her back when I'm done with this. I know she's preparing for our episode tonight that's in 3 hours. So I'm sure it was about that. So I don't know how Marni's doing today. I know yesterday it's rough. It's rough for her right now. Marni's never talked to anybody before, press-wise. And she was not comfortable doing this. And I will tell you that because this interview with Juju Chang happened months ago, so I did have visits at the prison with Marni after that. So I had talked to her about it, and she was upset. She felt that she was treated poorly, and she really did not get a good vibe from Juju Chang. We've all been a little worried that this was not going to be a good episode. But the thing that I was saying to Tammy was, let's hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. And then I knew it was going to be a hatchet job when one of the people from that 2020 episode was on a local radio station here, AM station. And when I heard him saying what's in the 2 hours, that's when then I was able to alert the team, and it's like, this is going to be bad. So no, Marni's, I don't know, but there's no way that she's in a good space right now. She was taken advantage of for ratings, and her story was still not told, and it's just unbelievably sad to me. Louise says, do you have a link so I can see the 2020 interview, please? Louise, Christopher could maybe post that, but I know that he said that what they do have uploaded is they're not putting the whole episode up there. They want you to pay for it in order to see the whole episode. So the very end part that had anything with Marni's actual team defending her, they're not allowing people to see that. So again, wronging Marni again. Yes, Marni has passed a polygraph, as has her father. And there is a polygrapher who is a part of the WMP Justice Review team. And I do know how lie detector tests are not admissible in court. But this guy was paid to do a job. He doesn't care one way or another how it comes out. And he said not only did the machine say she was being 100% truthful, who it's his job to talk to people and question them, he says he was 100% convinced in her innocence. Let me scroll. Landon says, what about the interview with Marni, and she named off all her guns, but she didn't know where her 9mm went. Then the son's friend came out and said he stole it. Was that right? Sorry, totally just trying to remember what the 2020 showed. So that was something that I brought up to Tammy as well that really pissed me off, that I know Gilters seized on. And again, Landon, I need to make sure I'm saying to you, I'm not putting you in that category. But they were saying, see, she purposely didn't bring up her 9mm. No. What the cops asked her is, what guns does she have? And so she said what guns she had. And then they said, well, didn't you have, and then it's like, oh, yes, I did. So she was telling them what gun she had. She didn't have that 9mm any longer. It had been gone for months. again, me and numbers. If this is your first time tuning into me, I have a really bad thing with numbers that I can't remember numbers. So I don't know how many months it has been. But who is that? Okay, sorry. I'm watching my governor's on TV right now that I have muted, and I was a field organizer for him when he was getting elected, and so they just showed somebody and I couldn't tell, and it's like, okay, yeah, I know her. Sorry, squirrel. So they were asking her what gun she currently owned. That's what she owned. That 9mm had been stolen a long time before. Something she said in the 2020 episode, they didn't fully go into it, is she called her insurance company. They said she's not insured for the gun. And it wasn't just the gun that was stolen. It was the gun. It was an underwater camera because she's a scuba diver. And there was a game system, that was stolen. So when she was told that you would need to call the police for insurance purposes, but when insurance said you're not insured for this, she then didn't do it. Why? Because she knew it was going to be one of her children's friends that did it, and Marni is the collect the lost souls, the abandoned puppies, and so she didn't want to do anything that could hurt the boy that stole the gun. Her father just like her father told her when she had said to her father, I'm going to make shit up, and he said, do not do that. Her father told her to report the gun, and she didn't listen to that either. So, Marni, while smart, is human and makes mistakes. So, that boy stole the gun because he had a debt to some bad people. And since he is a friend of Andrew Yang's, the police went to question them when they were zeroing in on Marni and Andrew. And so he didn't think, because you got to remember too, when the police were really balls out going after Marni, it is so far after when the crime had happened, so people aren't thinking about that. So when the police show up at this kid's house, he thinks it's going to be because he stole her gun and stole her stuff. He's not thinking they're coming because of this Ronnie Ryder murder thing. He's got no clue about that. And so that kid right away started saying, yeah, I know you're here, that I stole this gun. And they're like, nope, we don't want to talk about that. So, and then that's somebody that you were able to see in the 2020 episode when it aired live. They're not going to show it on the now uploaded thing of where one of the WMP Justice Review investigators, Perry, they showed when he was sitting across from the table from the boy who stole that gun. So, Marni's team knows him, talked to him, has the facts from that. And they gave that all to 2020, and 2020 chose not to do it. Gail says, Sean Gale didn't seem too upset about the baby or even ask in his initial call to police. Right, Gail, that's a big thing that's very weird to me, is that why would he say, now 2020 didn't show you this, but on the complete call, he asks if she was found in a pool of blood. Why would you ask that? That makes no sense whatsoever. Was she found in a pool of blood? And when you're 7 months pregnant and shot, maybe there's the chance that the baby could survive that. So wouldn't you ask about the baby, especially if it's your baby? So Sean didn't give two fucks. He's calling because he thought he was a suspect. Because that's what somebody said to him, is that he was a suspect. He wasn't calling to find out if Ronnie was okay. He was calling to ask if he's a suspect. Snoo says, don't think I want to watch the 2020 now. Don't want to up the views. Excellent point, Snooze. I had it on my DVR. I had recorded it, and I'm like, I'm deleting it. I'm not watching it again. I can't do it. It makes me so mad. Jennifer says, but I thought Marni was home. Who drove the car? So, Marni was at home. She absolutely was at home. Andrew was at home. He was homesick from school. Marni's truck, the battery was dead. A guy that, I don't know if she was currently having any kind of a dating relationship with Sal at that time, but Sal was a police officer that Marni had dated. I believe Sal is who she also bought the silencer book for. And so she had told Sal that she was having car trouble, and he had said it was the battery, that he would pick up a new battery, but he doesn't have a whole lot of time, so she needs to remove the battery, and he'll stop by, put the new battery in, and there you go. And so Marni had been outside in her garage trying to do that. And again, she's very smart, but she's not perfect. And she had her daughter's pay-as-you-go phone that they keep calling, what do they keep calling it, a drop phone or whatever. So she had Emily's phone. She tried calling Andrew inside to have him come out and help her. Andrew didn't answer. There are records of this, that she had called that phone. Andrew didn't answer. I think it's because he didn't know what that number was. So you have all that record that she was at home at that time. Plus, Marni had received a call on her landline from a debt collector. And there is evidence that that call happened. Now, who was driving the car? The photographer is the one who took that car back to the rental agency. Marni didn't have anything to do with that. They did the photo shoot. That guy kept the car, and then he took it back. So, but the car that you see in that shell video is not the car that Marni rented. That's just something that they said, here's a small black car that's going past this. We're going to use this and say it was her rental car. But the Justice Review team rented a car, the same kind of car that Marni had rented, and they drove it and filmed it. And you see Perry show that on the 2020 episode that they don't upload now, that it's clearly not the same car. Okay, Stephen Avery Project is responding to Gail, so one of the moderators is answering. Christopher agreeing he hired a hitman. Hi, Debbie. Louise says, did she send those emails? She did not send the letters. That was another girl who had a relationship with Sean Gale, Monica, that Sean Gale got a restraining order against. Monica is who sent those letters. And the letters are actually what we are discussing tonight on WMP Justice Review, which will be at 6 p.m., which it's 3:18 p.m. here currently, so we'll be at 6 p.m. And so you'll be able to find us live on WMP Justice Review Facebook page, and we're going to go over those letters. We will read to you the letters. You'll be able to see the letters because there were different letters. And Tammy, and I don't know if anybody else from the Justice Review team is joining us tonight. I never know. That's what Tammy's calling for too, that we go over what we're going to cover tonight. So they'll be able to go into those letters. Marni received the letter. And also something I need to point out that they said on 2020, which is not true. They said that Ronnie Ryder, the victim, had the letter in her purse. She did not. The letter was in a bag that was out in her car. So it's a little, again, twisting of the facts to try and make it look more ominous. But the letter was in like a backpack that was out in her car, not in her purse that was on her person. Jennifer says Hulu has it. I don't know if Hulu has the entire thing or not. Somebody will have to let me know on that. Melissa says Sean's 911 call was a crock of shit. Yep. Christopher posted the link. Landon says Sean probably took it and then set her up. Probably not if he was never at her house. Okay, there's Christopher with links again. Kate says, just joined. What was the documentary like? Sorry if it has already been asked. Can't seem to find it to watch in UK. Well, Kate, just above you now, Christopher's been posting links so you can watch it. And it was a shit show. It was a hatchet job on Marni Yang, because that's what sells. If it bleeds, it leads. It looks good to say that Marni Yang was this spurned girlfriend that was jealous of the pregnant one, which couldn't be further from the truth. Debbie says, I will never watch 2020 again. I am also removing it from my DVR. Is something that I record and watch all the time. And it is making me want... So usually I have the ID channel on all day long. That is like my background thing. And I watch a lot of the ID channel shows. And I'm just really going... Maybe I shouldn't be watching any of that, because these are all saying these people committed these crimes. And I don't know the whole story. So maybe I shouldn't be watching any of that. Okay, somebody just driving slow about past my house. Landon says, what about Christy Passion? What's her deal? I got a weird vibe from her. She's a weirdo. So she's somebody that kept saying that she's this government person, blah, 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 a spy and all this stuff, and a fortune teller and all these things. And with Marni being the collector of lost souls and, you know, taking in abandoned animals and all that, she met Christy at like a psychic convention or something like that, and befriended her. But the thing you need to remember with Christy Passion is, and I know I sound horrible when I say this all the time, but for you Stephen Avery people, it's like what was done to Brendan and everything, is that she was battered. They took her for 3 days and had threatened her that they're going to charge her as the murderer and all these, you know. So eventually you're just going to say and do whatever they tell you to do, because you don't want to be in trouble. So, and look at how often Lake County prosecutes innocent people. So she's right to be afraid. You know, but I beg of you, Christy Passion, right now, if you by any chance are in here watching this, contact Tammy at WMP Justice Review and tell the truth and help Marni. You will be protected. Hi, Debbie. Again, Debbie says, I am pretty hard to convince on someone's innocence, but I fully believe Marni is definitely innocent. Well, thank you so much, Debbie. Like I said earlier, I totally understand people thinking she's guilty, because what you see out there really makes it look like she's guilty. But they did the same thing to Stephen Avery. When you hear Ken Kratz at that press conference talk about all these things that was done to Teresa Hallback, oh my God, yeah, string them up. But you have to look behind that. We have to stop just following the thin blue line, and because law enforcement says it means it's true. Jennifer says, yeah, it is definitely not the same car. And then she says, Marni's name was on the mail list. Why would she send a letter to herself? Was Monica's name on the list? I think all their names were on the list. I think whoever did it was smart enough to send it to themselves as well, you know, to be a decoy. Katrina says, did I see a policeman got a restraining order against Marni? An ex-boyfriend. Yeah. Jennifer says, I watched it Saturday on Hulu, and it had all the stuff you said was deleted. Not sure if it's the same today. Well, I wasn't sure if Hulu had done it. It was the ABC, for ABC, their uploading of it. They didn't include the final piece. She's on top secret double probation, says Miley. Melissa says, there was a murder that took place in my neighborhood that made ID. While it was interesting, they really spun it and some of it was completely fabricated. Well, yeah, the thing that I always stands out to me is the Snapped episode where they say that Ronnie was down on her back in her arms around her pregnant belly when she was on her stomach. Debbie says, yes, I'm deleting all them. Dateline also. Gonna lose a lot of viewers from my family. I want truth, not lies. Yeah, I'm really hurt by this. I want somebody to tell the full story. I don't want some sensationalized trash. Whoops. Landon says, I really think Sean Gale has something to do with this. The entire hype of the beginning about the NFL and blah, 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 and how the 85 Bears are some of the best people the U.S. knows. There's no way that anyone will try and go after Sean, you know? Tammy and I were actually messaging during that part. And Steve, come on, really? We, yay, Chicago Bears, woohoo, Super Bowl shuffle. That was so much time that they put into that on doing this. Sean is this revered Super Bowl hero here in Illinois. I absolutely think he is responsible for the death of Ronnie Ryder. And Katrina responding to Landon. So, all right, I'm going to end this video because I have to call Tammy back. And she had assigned me homework yesterday and I haven't done it yet. And so I really need to start doing that. I just wanted to jump on here because I can be more open with you guys all here in MAM Gossip because this is the gossip place on how I feel about things and not go public. And actually, we're going to continue on Mondays and Fridays at 6 p.m. on the Justice Review Facebook page, where we're going to keep going into the evidence and showing you the actual facts of the case. So tonight's episode is the letters. So we're going to go over the letters. If you have not seen our prior episodes, you can go to, there's WMP TV Network channel on YouTube. It's also on Roku and Amazon Fire. And then you can also find it on Facebook and find all of our past lives where we've discussed. And if you ever want to question me about the case or Stephen's case or any of the cases I advocate for, so there's also Melissa Kaluzinski and there's Kent Pellegrini. Fire away. So, all right, no new questions. Thank you all for hopping on with me today. I'm going to get off. I'm going to call Tammy. I'll see you in 2.5 hours on WMP Justice Review Facebook page as we do episode 13 of the wrongful conviction, inside the wrongful conviction of Marni Yang. See you later. I don't have makeup on then. Maybe. I don't know. Tammy always wants us to, because Tammy likes us to look nice. And I never care what I look like. So maybe I'll put makeup on by then. Bye.